At the end of the previous video, I mentioned that the theme of this session is going to be about free will. We have already touched vaguely on that theme in one of our previous excerpts, but in this excerpt from volume 5 of Masnavi, we dive deep into this subject and how Rumi conceptualized this ever-present philosophical question. So let's begin with the translation of another excerpt of Masnavi, this time of chapter 5. A thief said to a marshal that your greatness, whatever I did was the will of God. The marshal answered, anything I do, my friend, is also up you Lord's will. This is God's rule that if someone steals even a turnip, it should be deemed as wrong and be punished. And no market vendor will accept that this is a viable excuse that you are presenting. If you trust on such an excuse, you put a fire-breathing dragon upon your own life. This is a self-destructive excuse, my unwise friend, by which you open the way to lose your wealth and family and bloodline. Anyone who dig a pitfall in your path in life releases themselves from any guilt or fault with the same excuse. If the will of God is considered a valid excuse for you, then maybe you should teach me things and announce a decree. Since I have a plethora of greeds and desires, but I feel restricted by fear of castigation. Thus, by the grace of your wisdom, educate me, please, and liberate me from all these constraints. You have willingly chosen a path in life, as you have your own independent will and mind. And now that you have chosen that path, amongst all the possible pathways in life, how is it that when it comes to your cupidity and cravings, you seem to have the will of 20 men all at once? Before going into a review and interpretation of the poetry excerpt, I really appreciate it if this kind of content are of your liking. Like and share my videos and subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. And if you find any of these videos helpful in your personal life, I will appreciate it if you simply buy me a coffee. The link for buying that coffee is in the description. In this parable, which is one of the most famous takes Rumi has on the problem of will, he allegorically establishes one of his main arguments about this philosophical question. Yet, it shouldn't be read in isolation, but alongside other arguments and sometimes conflicting ideas of Rumi to provide us with a full understanding of his ontological notion about will. I previously mentioned that in this series of videos, we will not have the intention to give very deep philosophical reading of Rumi, but a rudimentary access to his thought. Thus, we just read this alongside the other parable from volume 1, which we previously talked about. But still, even these two instances can give us a fairly inclusive insight into Maulana's approach. I want to first review Maulana's approach quickly from the excerpt we read from volume 1. We talked about a very specific Islamic notion mentioned by Rumi, which is called the qada, or the ordained balance and permissible possibility of things in the universe. As a part of a two-component system, the second component of which is qadar, or the precision of every measurement and relation in the creation of universe. We also talked about how Maulana is advocating the acceptance of a form of determinism coming out of this dual component system with a more emphasis on qada instead of qadar. So how is it that the current parable, the same deterministic thinker, is so big on free will now? The answer is another Islamic approach to the question of free will known as Amra Bain al-Amrain, which is Arabic for a case between two cases, or more loosely translated, the midst of two extremes. This is the approach that believes neither full determinism nor full free will is the case, but it is the midst of these two extremes that the case in the world. Therefore, when Maulana talks about qada as the ordained balance and permissible possibility of things, he is not being a determinist or predeterminist. He is, in fact, believes in the permissibility of different possibilities in the world, as previously said. This is closest to what is known as causal determinism, an approach that even many scientists, usually science seen as extreme opposite of spirituality, but even many scientists take this approach. So for Maulana, there is a determined causality in this word, which permits specific cause-effect relations, and one has free will as long as they do not want to act against the regular cause-effect relations of the world. And also, when Maulana talks about will in this parable and disqualifies the will of God as an excuse for human action, he is not saying that there is not bounds or limits. He is simply saying that every action or cause has a reactionary effect, and we already have that knowledge. So our action and behavior is always already based on our knowledge of its deterministic consequences. And therefore, we choose to do one thing over another, which is our free will. God has only created the universe with all its qualities and cause-effect relations, but it is us, conscious beings, who decide how to use those relations and run the course of our lives. Therefore, Maulana's biggest argument in this parable for proving the existence of some kind of free will is the fact that we actually choose our path on every turn of life. The very existence of the concept of choice is a proof of the existence of at least some level of will. And we have to take responsibility for our choices. Again, that rings a bell, like that resembles ideas of modern 20th century existentialists a lot. This parable may have been the most religious sounding thing we have read in Masnavi so far, but interestingly enough, even this one stands directly against and in the face of institutionalized religion, while the midst of two extremes approach is accepted by many Islamic philosophers. It is not necessarily popular amongst believers. Obviously, if it was, Maulana did not feel the need to elaborate on it in so many different instances and through parables and allegories that attract common people. It neither accepts the strong emphasis that the majority of Shia faction of Islam puts on free will, nor complies with the strong belief in predeterminism by the majority of Sunni Muslims. It comes out of the mainstream and screams out that the most logical answer is neither of these extremes. The same answer that many Western philosophers and later on many scientists give to the question of free will. So the most religious sounding thing we have read so far is in fact the least spiritual and the most logical and philosophical thing if we contextualize it. Until next video, پاینده باشید.